So grateful to our Senate lead and champion, Senator Markey, and to my co-lead in the House, an incredible champion, Sarah Jacobs and Mark Takano, and to everyone here that is standing in solidarity as we fight forward to protect the rights of trans people across this country. We have seen so much horror, from hateful language at the highest levels of our government to discriminatory legislation popping up in states across the country. And that means that too often when we discuss trans rights, we're on the defensive, discussing how to protect trans people from horrific Republican attacks and how to ensure that trans people can live authentically in our communities. Today, though, we are not on the defensive. We are looking forward with the Trans Bill of Rights. We are laying out a comprehensive vision to provide protections for transgender and non-binary people. A vision that ensures that every single person has a chance to thrive. A vision that says, you are us. You belong and you are worthy as of the same rights as everyone. This bill supports amending the Civil Rights Act to ensure that trans people have the same rights and protections as all other Americans. It creates a level playing field where trans people no longer have to fight tooth and nail to get the same treatment as their cisgender friends. Creating inherent protections for trans people when it comes to schooling, housing, accessing credit and healthcare, expanding community services and mental health services for trans people is what it takes to ensure that trans people have full equality, where we can celebrate trans rights rather than fight for every single right at every turn. I admit that I sometimes get tired, as I know you do, of the hateful and uninformed rhetoric that gets spewed out by Republicans against this tiny population of trans people across the country who hurt absolutely no one in being who they are. And I know the consequences of personal attack are dire for so many. And I promise you that I will never stop fighting back in Judiciary Committee, on the House floor, or anywhere else that we have to fight this hate. But to trans people everywhere, I also want you to know this. Those people are threatened by your strength, by your joy in being fully who you are. My daughter once said to me that those who fight against trans people are just jealous of the freedom that they have taken to be fully who they are. And so those people just want to destroy that, rather than imagine what it would be like to be fully who they are. Wise words from our young people. So today, the Trans Bill of Rights makes those freedoms we all deserve as clear as the paper they are written on. And we intend to continue this fight until we win this fight. Thank you all so much for your advocacy and for your strength in fighting for trans rights. And now it is my extreme joy and privilege to introduce the incredible champion on the Senate side, Senator Ed Markey.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Jayapal. Thank you to everyone who is gathered here on this historic day as we reintroduce the Trans Bill of Rights. And it is absolutely, at this time, necessary for us to do this. And I want to thank Congresswoman Jacobs for joining us today. We're going to be hearing from her very shortly. This is an all-star cast of national leaders who are joining us today. I also want to thank Olivia Hunt from Advocates for Trans Equality, and to Lala Zanel from the ACLU for being here. And I am especially grateful for the storytellers and the advocates who are here today. Today is a day of joy and a day of hope as we celebrate the reintroduction of the Trans Bill of Rights. Today we say loud, today we say clear, that enough of what is going on here in Massachusetts and in America and in Congress and across the street at the Supreme Court. We need to say it loud enough for every American to hear that trans rights are human rights and they must be protected every single day of every single year. And we stand together in solidarity with the trans community and with those who fight for those rights and with those who have too often been left behind by a system that refuses to recognize their humanity. We are here today to ensure that every trans and gender diverse person in America can live freely and safely and authentically. That's what the Trans Bill of Rights is all about. It's not just a framework, it is a moral commitment that must be made to the trans community. A commitment that our government will uphold the rights of trans people everywhere in our country. The Trans Bill of Rights builds on decades of tireless advocacy from those who have fought often at great personal cost and for recognition and justice for the trans community. We honor their struggles, their resilience. We honor their leadership historically. But as we celebrate, we must also acknowledge that the Trump administration and MAGA Republicans will stop at absolutely nothing to demonize and attack the trans community, to take your rights away, to take your freedom away. Trump and MAGA Republicans have used the power of government to spread fear, to spread hate across our country. Trump and MAGA Republicans have used the power of government to erase protections. Trump and MAGA Republicans have used the power of government to turn trans lives into political talking points for their political benefit. They have tried to ban life-saving and medically necessary health care. They have tried to keep kids from playing on school sports teams. They have tried to strip anti-discrimination protections from individuals with gender dysphoria. And why have they done that? Because when you cannot win on health care, on wages, and on grocery prices, you look for someone else to blame for your own political failures. And sadly, Trump and MAGA Republicans have decided that they will blame the trans community. They did it in 2024, they're doing it right now, and they're going to do it for as long as it takes for them to win. Well, we have a message for them. We're not going away. We're going to fight every single day to put trans rights into the law of our country, because trans rights are human rights, and that's why my colleagues and I have laid out a simple yet powerful truth in the Trans Bill of Rights. Trans people have the right to live free from discrimination. Trans people have the right to live free from violence. And trans people have the right to live free from government intrusion into their bodies and into their lives. Our resolution affirms the right to gender-affirming health care, the right to accurate identity documents, the right to fully participate in school, in work, and in public life, just like anyone else. This is about who we are as a country. It is about whether freedom belongs to all of us or only to some of us. Whether freedom belongs to we the people or to Trump and wannabe kings and his MAGA minions. To all trans people here with me today and all around the United States, I want you to know that you are seen. I want you to know that you are valued. I want you to know that you are loved. That is what you should know today. And I want you to know that there are people who are going to fight for you every single day on the floor of the United States House and Senate in order to win those rights for you. And to the families who love and support their trans kids and loved ones, you are on the right side of history. And I will always stand and I will always fight with you. And to Trump and the MAGA Republicans who think they can push trans people out of American life and out of existence, I have a message for you. We are louder, we are stronger, and we are not going anywhere. We're in this fight for the long term, and that is what we are celebrating here today. So trans rights are human rights. We're going to keep fighting every day for every trans and non-binary person so they can live without fear, without discrimination, and with the full promise of equal rights that they deserve. So we thank all of you for being here. Congresswoman Jayapal, a tremendous leader, and now I'm going to turn it over to Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs, the co-chair of the Transgender Equity Task Force and co-lead on the Trans Bill of Rights in the United States House of Representatives. Welcome, Congressman.
Well, thank you everyone for being here today. I'm surprised so many people are out in the cold. You can tell who's from Massachusetts and who's from California. But as you all know, trans Americans are being targeted just for being who they are, by laws, by court decisions that try and erase them from classrooms, from courts and fields, from healthcare, from public life, and from the guarantee of equal protection under the law. These attacks aren't about safety or fairness. They're about hatred and instilling fear. And we know how quickly fear can warp into suspicion and hatred and violence with deadly consequences. Next Benedict should have turned 18 years old this year. But tragically, they died by suicide one day after being beaten unconscious in a school bathroom by classmates and after a year of bullying and harassment. Nex's story is unfortunately all too common, and it's the predictable result of what happens when we let fear and hatred manifest. That's why not just Congress, but all of us have the responsibility to stand up and protect trans and gender nonconforming communities. We can't stay silent and hope things will get better on its own, because they won't. It's on us to stand up for the fundamental rights and dignity of everyone, including trans and gender nonconforming communities. That's why we need a Trans Bill of Rights for Nex and for every trans kid and every trans person in this country. Because no one should have to worry that they'll be denied healthcare, housing, education, or the ability to live openly as themselves because of who they are. No parent should fear that their child's safety or future is up for political debate. And no young person should grow up believing their government sees them as expendable. A transgender Bill of Rights isn't about special privileges. It's about guaranteeing basic human rights, like the freedom to exist without harassment, the freedom to access medically necessary care, the freedom to learn and work and play and participate fully in our communities, and the freedom to live openly with dignity, like all of us deserve. But progress isn't inevitable. We have to work for it. We have to fight for it. That's what happened with the civil rights movement, the women's equality movement, the fight for marriage equality, and now it needs to happen for the trans community. And that's why I'm so grateful to my colleagues, Representative Jayapal and Senator Markey, and to all of the amazing advocates standing behind us, because it's going to take all of us working together to make sure that trans people see that they are valued, they belong, and they are loved. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to Olivia Hunt.
Thank you so much, Representative Jacobs, and also to you, Senator Markey and Representative Jayapal, for having us here today to join you for the reintroduction of the Trans Bill of Rights. On behalf of myself and my colleagues at Advocates for Trans Equality, I'd like to express our gratitude for your unflinching leadership in support of trans people across the country, especially now when our community needs that support more than ever before. Since 2020, literally thousands of anti-LGBTQIA+ bills have been introduced in state houses around the country. It's a veritable tidal wave of political bullying disguised as legislation. And as we all know by now, most of these bills specifically target transgender and non-binary people, especially trans youth and their loving and supportive families. Now, thankfully, we've defeated more than 90% of these state bills. And in some cases, the same bill has been defeated year after year, session after session. Because our community is strong and resilient, and we will always come together to do what's right and defend our most vulnerable members. The past year has been very different. Since last January, in addition to the attacks that we've become used to at the state level, the Trump administration has launched its own unrelenting attacks on LGBTQIA+ Americans. And just like in the state houses, they've reserved their most vicious attacks and their most dehumanizing rhetoric for trans youth. And this is a moment that demands action. The lives of trans people, especially of trans youth, are not an abstract policy debate. Our community faces a coordinated effort to erode civil rights and protections, to criminalize our existence in public life, and to erase us from our communities. All people deserve to live full lives in safety and dignity with nothing less than full equality. More importantly, all children deserve to grow up free of violence and harassment and discrimination just for being who they are. And they deserve to see a future that has a place for them in it. Trans youth deserve to be protected by their government. They shouldn't have to be protected from their government. It's long past time that our federal laws reflect and protect the reality and dignity of all people. And adopting the policies and principles laid out in the Trans Bill of Rights will go a long way toward making that a reality. The majority of pro-equality members of Congress have declared their support for this framework multiple times. These leaders understand the urgent need to protect their trans constituents against discrimination in education and employment, and to promote access to health care, access to accurate identity documents, and investments to make their communities safer. Advocates for Trans Equality is proud to support and endorse this resolution. We applaud Senator Markey, Representatives Jayapal and Jacobs, and I believe we're up to 95 members from both chambers who have already co-sponsored the Trans Bill of Rights this year. Trans people have always existed. We've always been part of the complex tapestry that is the United States. Across the country, we are writers, teachers, journalists, cashiers, ministers, construction workers, librarians, pick any profession you care to name. We are your neighbors, family members, friends. We are your community, and we belong. And that is a truth that no amount of hostile rhetoric, policy, or legislation can ever change. Thank you.
Beautiful job.
And now it is my honor to...
Go ahead, please.
Now it's my honor to turn over the microphone to Lala Zanel from the American Civil Liberties Union.
Beautiful.
Lala.
Y'all a little too quiet for me, so I need to wake it up because I'm in the cold. I'm still something from my sister Raquel Willis. I believe in trans power! That was a call and response. Y'all supposed to be ready for that. I want y'all to scream at the top of y'all lungs so they can hear y'all. I believe in trans power! There you go. I feel a little bit better. And it warmed me up. Didn't it warm you up? Yeah. Today we are all here to reintroduce the Trans Bill of Rights. I stand here as an unapologetic black trans woman. Yeah. Thank you. Who has led this movement for over a decade to get us to moments like this. A moment where many of our founders of our trans movement are no longer here with us to see this. This current climate has many trans folks scared for the future during these times, and many of us are powering through it using our strength of resilience and our care for our community, as we always have, and we will continue to do so. The reintroduction of the Trans Bill of Rights will aim to protect access to gender-affirming care, prevent discrimination in housing and public spaces, and preserve legal recognition. The bill was first introduced as a direct response to the record number of state-level bills attacking trans rights, heavily targeting trans health care, and restrictions on bathroom access and our sports participation. As we see history repeating itself, with so many more state-level bills attacking our community yet again, by reintroducing this Trans Bill of Rights, my hope is that this will affirm our government's duty to protect all trans and non-binary people by ensuring our safety, bodily autonomy, and economic security. I stand here proud of the strides my community has made and have been part of so many powerful policy changes my community has been able to make. How powerful is it for me to be standing here today during Black History Month as a black trans woman, still changing history to help keep this great country amazing and free of attacks of trans people. Making this redeclamation to my community in this movement shows the power of people, and some folks still see the power in the faith in our democracy. In closing, I know we all have a lot of work to do, and I know that we are stronger together. We must all learn from each other. We must not focus on our differences, but on our strengths and collectively strategies to get us through these hard times. Then and only then will we all truly be free, and we all will be able to have the American dream that we all are talking about and free to have. Thank you.
Now we're going to hear from Emily, Massachusetts parents.
Hello. Thank you for the reintroduction of the Trans Bill of Rights and for standing up for families like mine when it feels like so many doors are closing. A year ago, my son Abbott and I traveled from Massachusetts to D.C. to rally on the steps of the Supreme Court, hopeful for progress, hopeful that his future would be safer and brighter. In just 1 year, that hope has slipped away. Across this country, legislators aren't working to lower the cost of groceries or healthcare. They are working to dehumanize the trans community. We are even seeing the impact of this hate in progressive states like Massachusetts. In October, Fenway Health, an institution that has long been the cornerstone for LGBTQ healthcare, preemptively closed its door to trans youth seeking gender-affirming care out of fear of federal defunding. Similar places are shuttering in Minnesota, California, Washington, Illinois. Major medical centers are turning their backs on trans kids who desperately need care. At the same time, we are seeing a massive rise in anti-trans rhetoric and bullying in our schools. Abbott used to love going to school, which is rare for a middle schooler. He was joyful, confident, and excited to learn. This year, relentless bullying and hate has chipped away at who he is. My happy-go-lucky kid has struggled with depression and has even had thoughts about ending his own life. We even looked at taking him out of school, but his response was, "Why do I have to be the one to lose something else when I've lost so much already for just being me?" This legislation affirms something that should never be up for debate, that transgender people are human beings who deserve dignity, safety, and equal protections under the law. It helps ensure access to medically necessary, evidence-based health care. It pushes back against discrimination in schools, so bullying is addressed, not ignored. It affirms that kids like Abbott deserve to use the bathrooms where they feel safe, to participate in the sports teams where they belong, and to exist fully in all parts of society without fear. Our voices need to be louder than those trying to erase our children. Thank you, Senator Markey, and for Representatives Jayapal, Takano, and Jacobs, as well as all the legislators that have signed on to this Bill of Rights, for seeing Abbott, for seeing his humanity. Thank you for fighting on behalf of the entire trans community, and thank you for giving families like mine hope when it seems impossible.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. And now we're going to hear from Alano, a college student from Nevada.
Hello, so as you heard, my name is Alano, and I'm a college student from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm on the Hill today to remind lawmakers and the general public that transgender people are actual people who live in your community. We sit next to you on the bus, we go to school with your kids, we have families, career aspirations. Our lives are just like yours, except that every day has become an obstacle course for us, especially as of late. Because many of the rights and protections that you rely on to go about your daily life aren't extended to us as trans people. For example, the current administration has stripped us of the basic right to have accurate federal ID documents. We are no longer able to update the gender marker on our documents to reflect who we actually are. On the surface, this might seem trivial. I mean, the listed gender marker is just a meaningless record stored in a government system somewhere, right? But it's more than that. Federal ID documents are used in high-stakes situations that can easily go sideways if the details on your ID don't line up with who you actually are. Unfortunately, I've experienced this on a personal level. Due to the policies of the Trump administration, I was denied a passport with a male gender marker and instead was issued one with a female gender marker. Every time I was offered a job or internship that I had worked so hard to get, I would have to present that passport. All I could do was hold my breath and hope that the person processing my paperwork wouldn't notice that female gender marker. or if they did notice, that they wouldn't discriminate against me because of my transness. My ability to work depended entirely on how that person chose to respond. There was a real chance that I could suddenly lose the job offer for a manufactured reason, or if I was hired, that I would be ostracized or treated differently because they now knew of my transness. Essentially, to access the basic right to work, I was forced to disclose deeply personal information that put me at risk, information that should have been my choice to share. Traveling with an inaccurate passport is even more dangerous. The main purpose of a federal ID document, like a passport, is to prove that you are who you say you are. If I'm traveling and I present a passport that says female, there's a good chance that I might be suspected of impersonation and subjected to extra screening. That doesn't actually make anyone safer. It just puts trans people like me at risk and clogs up security systems, which means that actual criminal activity is more likely to go unnoticed. It also opens us up to harassment, or in some cases, even detention in certain countries, simply for being trans, a risk that prevented me from traveling abroad to visit family due to the inaccurate gender marker on my passport. All of this harm to both trans people and public safety systems is wholly unnecessary and could easily be avoided by allowing trans people to update their gender markers on federal ID documents. We just want our IDs to be accurate. This is one of the basic protections that the Trans Bill of Rights seeks to ensure. I would like to urge all members of Congress to sign on to the Trans Bill of Rights, which aims to establish equal protections for trans people under federal law. We're not asking for special treatment. We're only asking for the same rights and protections that are already afforded to everyone else. Finally, I'd like to thank Senator Markey, Representative Jayapal, and Representative Jacobs for their leadership and for continuing to defend the rights of trans people, especially during a time when our basic rights are being publicly debated and challenged. I'd also like to thank every member of Congress who will choose to co-sponsor the Trans Bill of Rights and stand on the side of equality. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you, Alano. And finally, we're going to hear from Eli, a healthcare worker in California.
Hi, so good to meet you. Hi, everyone. I am so overjoyed to be here today with the sponsors of the Transgender Bill of Rights, Senator Markey and Representatives Jayapal and Jacobs. Thank you so much, and all the other champions of trans rights here today. I am transgender myself and a registered nurse living in California. I've been a nurse for going on a decade. I deploy as a volunteer with the American Red Cross to regional disasters like wildfires, and I've worked in home care, hospice, mental health, and public health. But my first job was at a federally qualified health center in the Bay Area where I helped provide primary care to a caseload of about 200 transgender patients. This was from 2016 to 2018. Transgender care was harder to access at this time as the Affordable Care Act had only recently mandated that transgender care be covered by insurance, creating an expansion in people's ability to access care. Before the ACA, we had to travel to other countries and pay out of pocket for care, which was out of reach for most. Since this level of access was still new, people traveled from across the country to our clinic in California simply because there weren't qualified providers of care in their home state yet. This crossing of state lines diminished over time as medical providers across the country took it upon themselves to get educated about the kind of care we need, which in essence is very simple and safe. Another role I have currently is that of a nurse educator for new medical students at our local university, UC Merced, on a contract basis. They're myself and our community's sole provider of medical care for transgender people, a nurse practitioner, talk to students about how safe, easy, and impactful this care is for the people being treated. With this expanded education, people gradually stopped having to cross state lines for care, and I stopped hearing about this kind of story. Now, people are crossing state lines again, but for a different reason. This time it's because some politicians who know nothing about best practice medical care for trans folks have taken it upon themselves to intrude upon our lives and insert themselves into what should be a private decision between patient and provider. I currently run a nonprofit in my rural area of Merced, California, and in 2024 I started seeing adults and families with trans teens fleeing states like Tennessee and Utah when their state governments banned or plan to ban trans care for kids. This is not what healthcare should look like in our country, where some people can get care and some can't. In the course of my medical career, some of the sickest young patients I have seen have been those who have previously received gender-affirming care and then had been abruptly cut off. I've seen young people who should have been perfectly healthy otherwise walk into the clinic pale, emaciated, lethargic, and sad, having traveled from another state after having been cut off hormones abruptly. As I said before, gender-affirming hormone therapy is incredibly safe, effective, and reversible, but the one thing you don't want to do is cut someone off cold turkey and force families to cross state lines to resume care with legislation passed to score political points. It's inhumane to force folks to uproot their lives for primary care that is safe, effective, and reversible. Thank you.
Beautiful job. Great job, Eli. Are there any questions?
Too cold.
Thank you all. Let's go. We're going to get this moving. Huh? Thank you all so much. Woo.
Thank you.
Thank you.